Something's different. I can't quite figure it out, but something's different. It might have to do with opening up. Was it you that did it yourself, Tom Breen, or so no barbershop visits, huh? Alrighty. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all. We have 2,622 cases and 109 fatalities. The cases are very slowly going up, which overall is a good sign. Obviously, we're monitoring that very closely, in particular with all the congregating going on. We want to make sure that that we keep an eye on the virus and the spread in case we need to act more to address it. A couple of things to share. Today I signed a rescission of my order restricting gatherings of 10 or more people, and that will go into effect on June 14th. The governor's order, or my order, is more strict than the governor's order, and since there is a lot of confusion about the different restrictions on different numbers of people, and as we monitor the data and overall it seems like we're continuing on a downward trend, I wanted to make sure that we brought ourselves in line with the governor's orders so it would bring simplicity. And it looks like from a safety perspective, this is the right decision as well. Career High School. So Career High School, the isolation shelter is officially closed now. We saw over time a downward trend on the number of individuals that needed the site. And so now it's we've closed this site. And Rick, can you share some details on how, what the status is of the site right now as far as cleanup and such?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. On Wednesday, May 27th, we actually put Career Regional High School on standby. We had actually gone down to our last guest, and immediately following that, on May 28th, literally the next day, we went over and started what we call a decontamination process. That process included the utilization of a system called the Aeroclave electrostatic decontamination system. Very sophisticated, very expensive system that is, if you're going to decontaminate an area with COVID, this is the system you want. We use it in fire apparatus. We use it in areas that we had high amounts of traffic. We use it in patrol cars. We use it in ambulances. By using that system, we actually put a particular solution in there. It's called vital oxide. It's really it's probably one of the most effective solutions on the market. It utilizes a high concentration of chlorine dioxide, but it is extremely safe. You can actually spray it on your skin. The good thing is we were able to get in there and decontaminate not only the air within the facility, but also anything that was touched, whether it was some of the bleachers where the individuals sat, whether it was the cots that were there, some of the equipment. But we went through it very methodically to ensure that this is one of the only products that when you spray it on COVID, it kills it instantly. So the fire department has 2 of those machines. They were very effective. We let that building then sit for approximately 5 days, and then the Board of Education started the cleaning, more disinfecting process. So very methodical, making sure that we covered every area that any of the individuals were in on the contaminated side.
Thanks, Rick. And I wanted to take a moment to express my thanks on behalf of the city to so many people that helped with this site. There was an incredible amount of work on our team, but also so many volunteers. There were many volunteers through the Medical Reserve Corps and our partners, especially Dr. Tracy and Michael Pinto on the Board of Education side, that put in countless hours to make this happen. And I also wanted to highlight in particular Dr. Rosenthal, who's on the call. Dr. Rosenthal is a doctor at the VA, and he served as the lead medical advisor and advised on wraparound services for clients, advised on staffing, operations, quality improvement. And he was also a strong ethical compass along the way for some challenging decisions that we needed to make. We're so grateful for your willingness, Dr. Rosenthal, to step up and your willingness to help. This is obviously not just one moment in your life that you do this. This is something that you do all the time. But we're very grateful to have benefited from your expertise, your wisdom, and your support. Dr. Delisle, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, I echo and amplify those statements. I had the pleasure of working directly with Dr. Rosenthal over the last several weeks, sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning. And I can say without fail that Dr. Rosenthal was extremely committed to the success of this project. It not only provided humane respite care for individuals that had COVID and didn't have a safe place to isolate. In my estimation, we protected substantial transmission because we were able to provide such a safe and comfortable space. This was no small feat. This had not been done in such short order before, and it could not have been done without Dr. Rosenthal's help and dedication. It wasn't in just the planning and the medical side. I can truly say he was involved in every single aspect, from the small details in terms of the facilities and patient flow, all the way to the bigger picture ethical issues that the mayor mentioned. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, I really, really appreciate his involvement in this project.
And Dr. Rosenthal, in normal times, we would give you a paper proclamation saying thank you for your work, but these aren't normal times. So we have a not paper proclamation from the city of New Haven that at some point you will physically have to remember our thanks to you and all your efforts. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to say anything, great.
Sure, I'll just say thank you very much. And I mean, honestly, I think it was wonderful working with all of the people on this call, as well as recognizing that there were probably over 60 Medical Reserve volunteers. The Medical Reserve Corps was amazing. And so the people, when there was a need and the city put out a call for help, lots of people stood up. And I also want to just highlight also the work of James Harriet from the city of New Haven, who was the site manager, who put in countless hours. This was a team effort, and there was a tremendous amount of people who stepped up to help make this work. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Dr. Rosenthal. So now that careers closed, we've been having a lot of conversations about ensuring that the virus is still in New Haven, and we want to make sure that we have the ability to provide sites for people that may not have the ability to isolate. And that may be people that live in an apartment with a lot of family members. They don't have a separate room. That may be individuals experiencing homelessness. That may be other scenarios. And we've been for quite some time in conversations with Albertus Magnus, and they have agreed to allow us to use some of their dormitory space. And that site is now active. It currently has no one in it. But that site will be active until the end of July for us to use as a isolation shelter. I just want to express my gratitude to President Mark Camille and the Albertus board for being very, very willing and open to collaborating on this. We're not paying them any money for this site, and they've from the moment when I reached out, they were willing to make this work. And this is not only something that it's nice to know that we have this kind of partner, but it also, I think, aligns with the mission of the university and our mission in supporting people that are really struggling right now and in need of this potential site. So we're very happy that we have this alternative site as well. I don't think I have anything else to add. Does anyone else on the team here have anything to add, or should we turn over to questions?
No, I think, Mary, I just want to add one thing. And again, to Dr. Rosenthal, just kudos to this guy. He was the energizer buddy for sure, and keeping that site up and running. But what I did want to mention is, we've graduated from high school. Now we're moving on to college. So up at the Albertus site, yeah, it's a beautiful site and great building. And that transition literally took about a week to do, but a lot of hard work. It's a lot of teamwork. So again, thank you. I know Dr. DeLaw was just, was always driving the car, just making sure the foot was on the gas, get it done. And it is up and running. It's a great facility, and it will provide a level of public health and safety to those individuals that need to have what we call, either social distancing or away from out of an area that they can transmit COVID. So we're looking forward to another successful run.
Thanks, Rick. Do you folks have any questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks. Thanks for complimenting the haircut. About Albertus, how many rooms will Albertus be providing for the city, and will there be medical providers stationed on site?
Rick or Dr. DeLaw, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so there's 12. So the building, there are 3 buildings at Albertus, and there are 2 of the buildings are at 490 Prospect, and then one behind it at 411 Mansfield. We're going to be using the rear building. There are a total of 12 units in that facility. It's actually, we call them suites. They are actually each unit has a kitchen, bathroom, of course, an area for eating and an area for sleeping. We anticipate there to be somewhere between, again, maximum occupancy in that one building is somewhere between 25 and 30.
We'll have site on staff 24/7, medically trained, and they're developing clinical protocols as they did for the career high school site as well.
Thank you for that. But this site is not just for homeless individuals with COVID. It's for a broader group of people who need to isolate. Correct. Either Dr. Rosenthal or Dr. DeLaw, do you have a sense of how many people the career isolation shelter served during its time open, or either in total or average per day?
We had 15 individuals total that were served while it was open. And then one more question for now, and then I'd love to circle back after some others. Mayor, on June 14th, could you remind me and us, so what will be the maximum number of people who can socially gather? You said you're following the governor's order, but do you have that number on the top of your head?
That is a much more complicated question than you would imagine, because there are a lot of different scenarios. And so I am reluctant to try to get into the details, because it depends on, the governor's order depend on, for example, religious gatherings are a different number than outdoor gatherings, are a different number than indoor gatherings. I have a couple notes here, if I can find them. So there's a maximum of 25 for non-religious outdoor gatherings, maximum of 10 for non-religious indoor gatherings that are social or recreational. Certain outdoor gatherings are still banned entirely, like baseball, because of touching. There's a maximum of 50 indoor or 150 outdoor for churches. You can see, and there's some others too, you can see that it's really complicated. And so we can get you more details if you want from our office.
That was very helpful. Thanks. I'd love to circle back if, after some others have a chance.
Sure. Are there other questions?
I'd like to ask a question.
Go for it.
Just so maybe some clarifications. The Albertus site, you mentioned 12 buildings on the site, and there's what, 25 to 50 people can be accommodated? Is that, I just want to make sure I got that correctly.
No, that's not correct. Rick, can you clarify?
Yeah, there are 3 buildings that are part of that new facility that Albertus has taken over from the Catholic Charities. There are 3 buildings. We're taking one of the buildings, the rear building, and it will be somewhere between a total of 25 to 30 is the maximum capacity.
Okay, and you gave addresses, but are you giving out the addresses? You talked about Prospect and then Mansfield.
Well, yeah, I think the main building, the main building, the first 2 buildings, their addresses are listed as 490 Prospect, and then the rear building, which is actually probably the nicest of the 3, is at 411 Mansfield. So it's actually accessed through Mansfield Street.
Okay, has it been available since Career shut down, or it's just going into effect now?
Well, we were on standby at Career. Once the last guest left Career, we kept it on standby and started the cleaning process. And then in the meantime, we were transitioning into the new facility.
Okay. All right. And then the total number of people in Career was 15, right? 15, okay. I just have a question maybe on the homeless transitioning out of hotels. I know there's some money, I think, available to help shelter homeless that came down. What is the city's plans on that?
Dr. Jalal, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, so the city's the homeless plan, that's a statewide plan to transition individuals as quickly as possible into more permanent housing situations is in effect. In fact, the thought it's supported by the state agencies, the Department of Housing, and it's supported by the regional homeless service providers and networks, including the one that serves New Haven. Our role in that is going to be supportive with respect to aligning with those activities and doing our best to help the agencies along with respect to placements. There's also a financial component in terms of the federal dollars that are coming down from the CARES Act. Some of that we propose to be dedicated to getting folks into individual permanent housing as well.
Okay. You mentioned some of the tricky ethical questions that Dr. Rosenthal helped with. Can you talk generally about what those are or were?
Yeah, sure. I can talk a little bit about those, and if Dr. Rosenthal wants to weigh in as he has the on the ground perspective, I'm happy to defer to him as well. One of the longstanding debates around public health is this issue of what we call harm reduction. Harm reduction is basically a philosophy that says that you have to meet people where they are and what they're willing to do. With respect to our isolation facility, we of course encountered individuals, we served individuals that are homeless and encountered among that population individuals with substance disorder, individuals who had a nicotine addiction. Since our primary purpose was to keep them and the community safe from COVID spread, we did make allowances with respect to, for example, having individuals take smoking breaks, which primarily would not be allowed in a public health setting. But our goal to ensure that they felt comfortable and safe within that setting. We also organized the delivery of methadone treatment, daily methadone treatment programs, work with providers so that those who are in the facility felt comfortable and didn't feel the need to leave the facility to get that necessary treatment for opioid addiction. Those are a couple of examples, and Dr. Rosenthal might want to weigh in as well.
Yeah, those are pretty much good examples. And I think part of it was actually in conversations that we've had with other isolation and quarantine facilities around the country. There are sort of networks around sort of harm reduction policies and making sure that people are very comfortable in these settings. And I think the one about nicotine and trying to provide cigarettes to those who need cigarettes or have cigarette breaks, even though as a public health perspective, we may not support that, especially with someone with a lung infection or COVID. We were able to figure out through various nonprofits and donations being able to facilitate cigarettes and having cigarette areas for people to smoke at. That's a good example of one of those.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add, Dr. Jalal, I don't think you did it justice. The initiative to ensure that the individuals that are currently in hotels that are homeless not going back to shelters, but going back to supportive or permanent housing is a really big deal. And it's inspiring that the state has come to the table with a lot of funds, that many other municipalities, including New Haven, have dedicated funds to this project as well, with a vision of, we've had all these homeless shelters that have been closed for quite some time, with a vision of not necessarily needing to open them in the same way as in the past, because we can support so many people moving into permanent housing. There's been a lot of talk about housing first, because people that don't have a stable place to go, to take a shower, to recuperate, aren't able to, in many ways, accomplish a lot of the things that make them successful, are going to make them successful. And so I'm excited that New Haven's a part of this initiative, that we're planning on dedicating a large portion of our ESG funding from HUD to this initiative, and that so many other municipalities in the state are as well.
Okay. We have enough empty apartments, I mean, things that are available to actually accommodate this population?
Well, one other thing, and Dr. Dahl can add to this, that has been exciting about what's already happened, is there's many people that were in the hotels that have already been placed in transition and permanent housing. Dr. Jalal? Yeah,
so we have a stamp of this this initiative now called the 1,000 Homes Initiative, but in reality, as soon as folks for the individuals in the shelters were moved over to the hotels, some of our partners started working at a furious pace to get them housed permanently. So since the beginning of the pandemic, there are over 100 individuals that have been housed from this initiative already. And we anticipate housing almost 200 more by the end the next couple of months.
You're talking about in the New Haven region, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Just exactly New Haven region. Yep.
About 200 more in a couple of, so the region, so people aren't just concentrated in New Haven, you're actually going to find some.
It's a regional approach. Yep.
Right, cooperation elsewhere. And the partners, is it mainly the people that were already dealing with these situations? I guess Columbus is a big one, but other partners.
Columbus House is one of the primary partners, but there are many other agencies that are involved in this. It's a big effort, which includes, landlord engagement, it includes case management, includes identifying, what level of risk the individual might pose, whether they would be successful independently or whether they need permanent support housing. There's a large team of individuals and multiple organizations that are involved.
Okay, maybe just one more. What's the population that you have to solve it for in New Haven? Maybe that we're in the apartments already, or we're in the hotels, or just the universe that we have to find homes.
In our region, we're looking to house 170 more. Did that answer your question?
So you say 170 more coming out of the hotels in New Haven?
Primarily, there's some that are on the list that are not in the hotels and are truly unsheltered, and so it's the total is 170.
All right, in a few more months, you hope to have that solved.
That's correct. It's thought to be a three-month long initiative. Hopefully, by the end of the summer, we'll have made substantial progress on this.
Right, thank you.
Before I go back to Tom, are there any other questions from anyone else on there? Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Thanks. I'm going to quickly read a comment that one of our readers recently left about delays that they and others have experienced at Dr. Murphy's walk-in site. And I've heard this from other people too. This commenter wrote, most people I know who got tested at the walk-in sites administered by Dr. Murphy's office didn't hear back about results until 2+ weeks later. What good is testing without results? 2 weeks in, most people would have symptoms by then anyway. I'd say for me personally, it took about a week to get my results back from Dr. Murphy, but I have heard from a few people that it's taken upwards of 2 weeks.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'll take that question. So the question is about the results and the delay. So we realized that there was a glitch on Dr. Murphy Medical's associate system with the laboratory system. And when they caught the glitch, it was over a week. And so we have recognized that error and quickly have resolved it. We also implemented cards to give out at each of the testing sites so that they also have a number to call in the event that they're not contacted in a timely fashion, so that they can be able to reach someone. So we do recognize that that was a glitch in the system with their, the online technology being able to speak to each other.
Could you explain a bit more what glitch in the system means?
So there was a electronic laboratory that they work with, and it connecting virtually with their technology system. And so there was a break in the technology system, and it was not discovered until a week later. And once it was discovered, they quickly fixed the system, and now we have a quality assurance weekly meeting to address any concerns in regards to things of that nature, so we can catch them quicker.
And when did you catch this, and when was it fixed?
It was
Around.
last week. We received a few complaints through a number of individuals, and once we started seeing there was a trend of complaints that came in, we met with the Murphy Medical Associates team and our team to address it.
Thank you, Director Brown.
You're welcome.
And
and
I
then
would just add, I'm sorry, or we're sorry, because that's not the to the point of what's the purpose of a test if it comes in 2 weeks later. That's absolutely right. Like there's an expectation that the test results should come back within a few days, and that's important from a health perspective, and also if people are feeling anxious about their results. So, on behalf of everyone, I apologize for that. And people should report it immediately to the health department if there's concerns in the future, to the health department number 203-946-4949.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then I do have one more question for you, Mayor. It is about how this weekend the Minneapolis City Council committed to dismantling the police department as it currently exists. LA's mayor said that he will cut $100 million from the police department. New York City's mayor said something similar, and you attended a anti-police brutality and police abolition rally on Friday here in New Haven that saw 5,000 people turn out. And I wondered how you have responded to both these actions that mayors have taken, city legislatures have taken around the country, and what you heard and saw and thought on Friday here in New Haven.
Sure. So I as you know, I marched at the rally on Friday, and it was inspiring. There were, I thought a couple thousand people came out, because when you're in the crowd, you really don't have a sense of how large the thing is, and the fact that 5,000 people marched very peacefully, both in outrage, but my sense is with a lot of hope as well, is really inspiring. There's been a lot of different conversations about what next steps are. And I think the vision of a world where we don't need police is a good one. And it's something we should work towards. In so many ways, the traditional view of policing is addressing the symptoms and not the roots of the problem, because the roots are around economic inequality, mental health, substance abuse, and so many other systemic racism, so many other issues. And so as much as we can, supporting social services rather than policing is a good vision. I wouldn't go as far as to say that we should abolish policing or completely defund policing. And I know that people that have been using the term, some of them have a different idea of what the term is than others. We get over 100,000 calls every year requesting police. And so while I do think it's important for us to have a deep conversation about the role of police, I think it's too far for us to go to simply defund the police. I do think that we've made some steps already in that direction. However, for example, in our budget process this year, which was as people that watched it will recall a real struggle, and we need to make very, very difficult decisions. The budget that I presented to the Board of Alders reduced the number of funded officers by 10%, so that we could ensure that we can continue to fund youth programming and support for the homeless population and other social services. I think it's difficult to strike the right balance. As mayor, it's very difficult for me to say we're just going to cut the police budget altogether. I don't think that overall that's what the majority of community members want. I also don't think it's the right way to do things, especially without significant action on the federal and state level to support social services.
And do you think that you will propose any cuts to the next fiscal year's approved budget of $43 million thereabouts to the police department?
I think that we need to have a lively conversation as a community. I just presented my first budget a couple months ago, and the world is a very different place right now.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Right, go for it, Mary. Maybe we can do the last question.
All right. I guess I mean it follows up on the weekend or the last week's directions. How did you come to the conclusion, or you and the police department come to the conclusion, have a totally different presence, I guess, on Friday than on Thursday? I mean, there wasn't a wall of police. I mean, people were standing to the side, as opposed to the original one, where eventually it evolved to the point where people were trying to break through and pepper spray was used. So what was the conversations you were having with the police, I guess, to really have a different presence in the second march?
So there was a lot of conversations that Chief Reyes and I had. Both of us also had a lot of conversation with community members.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a combination of things. One was a lot of reflection. The other was that the climate had changed a little bit nationally. As you recall, in the lead up to Sunday, there was a lot of unrest in some of the other cities. And both the chief and I were concerned about some of that happening in New Haven. But I also think there was a lot of reflection that went on about, I think at this time, so many of us are thinking about the role of police in calming and in escalating. And the results of what happened this past Friday was a combination of that reflection and also conversations that we had with the organizers of the events and community members that resulted in a very different approach.
All right. So was it not so much you didn't expect the kind of violence that was apparent across the country anyways, a week before that? Because of these conversations, I mean, was the initial approach, I guess, the initial response the wrong one? I mean, was it? I mean, a lot of people did complain, the wall of police when they went there, they were thinking it was their building, it was a city building. Why have that kind of presence? I mean, was that really necessary a week ago as opposed to when the second March?
I think hindsight's 2020.
Mm-hmm.
In looking back, I think that I could have done some things differently. I don't want to speak for the chief in choices, but I want to look forward and certainly realize that it's important for me to be present, even if there's a few signs that I don't agree with and slogans that are said that I don't agree with, when overall the overwhelming majority of people that are participating in events and their views I do agree with.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. All right, take care.